Hey guys, welcome back to Proko. This is another critique episode. Today I'm going to be critiquing your calf assignments. I provided you with 4 photographs, and the assignment was to do shaded drawings, so to spend a little bit more time on them than we were doing before with the quick sketch assignments. I wanted you guys to actually shade them in, think about the forms, the halftones, and really analyze the forms a little bit more detailed than what we did before. In the premium section of the anatomy course, I have the full critique video. I usually critique between like 15 to 20 students on there. That's at proko.com/anatomy. You get the full critique video and also just the whole anatomy course with ebooks and 3D models and extended lessons, assignment demonstrations, all the good stuff. All right, so this first critique is for Haruhiko. This is one of his drawings, so it's a side view of the leg bent. The anatomy looks fine. The only thing is that the shading is a little bit undefined. Like, I would try to simplify your shading in order to reveal the forms more than what you're seeing on the photograph. Because these are still studies. Like, we still want to make sure that we're showing the anatomy, we're accentuating the anatomy, we're designing the anatomy to look good. We're not just copying the photograph. And so what I mean is, if you look at this whole anterolateral area right here, and I know when we did this assignment, we haven't done the anterolateral muscles yet, but we could see the volumes on the photo very clearly. So your shading, it doesn't show each of those volumes as a little cylinder, like a little tube running down the leg. So I want to show you a little trick. I mean, this is a simplified way of thinking of shading, but it's a good start. When you want to simplify something, this is a really good start. So basically, here, let me show you the drawing I did. Okay, so that was my assignment demo for the same photograph. And you can see how I'm showing a pretty clear cylinder right there, right? You could feel how that's round. And then same thing on this one. You could feel that cylinder right there going all the way up. Very cylindrical. And then over here, another cylinder. So it's like 3 cylinders, and they don't look the same. I mean, they have variety in them. It's not like I drew 3 of the same thing side by side like fingers. They're slightly thicker. One is higher. One is behind a bone. Like, there's a little bit of variety in that shape, but still, they're very cylindrical. And so here's a really quick guide that you can fall back on when you're doing cylinders. So every cylindrical volume is going to have halftone, highlight, halftone, core shadow, reflected light. Okay, it's gonna follow those steps. And I'm talking about a direct light situation like this, where you have a light source coming from one direction and you have some bounce light coming into the shadow. That's a very typical situation. So you're gonna have a core shadow running along the side here. I don't like to put it in the middle. You don't want to break forms in half. You want to either put it mostly in shadow, mostly in light. Usually you want to put more of it in light, and so the shadow is going to be a little smaller, but it really just depends. And then in the shadow, you're going to have a lighter tone. And when I say lighter, I just mean it's lighter than the core shadow. It's not a light tone. It's still a shadow. So this core right there, the edge between the shadow and the light is going to be a darker version. And then there's going to be a little bit of light reflecting back, bouncing off the walls, off the floor. Okay, and then coming from that core shadow, as we go into the light, it's going to slowly gradate from dark to light again. So that's a halftone right from there. And then we go into this area here where there's going to be a highlight or a center light. And then it goes back as it wraps around, it gets into shadow, back into halftone again. And then if you really want to, you can accentuate that highlight a little bit. Depends on the material. There you go. So now you have this rounded form. And then if you have 3 of them, like I have on my leg, you just repeat it 3 times. Core shadow, halftone, shadow. And then see how right here I have it soft? If I want to indicate that it's the end of the form, I just add a sharp edge, and boom. Now it's obvious that this is a rounded form, and it ends right there. I'm just gonna give it a stronger highlight. There we go. Okay, so just remember those 5 steps: halftone highlight, halftone core, reflected light. It seems like you have to remember that order, but it's actually pretty simple. You know, you got your light and you got your shadow, and then within your shadow, you just have that dark rim, the core light, the core shadow, and you have the light reflected light. And in the light side, you just have 2 halftones with a highlight in the middle. Pretty simple. And so this is a formula. This isn't how every lighting situation is going to be. This is just a really quick kind of go-to that you can fall back on. And this is what I think that you should accentuate a little bit more of. You should be a little bit cleaner in how you show each of these elements in your drawing. Sometimes your halftones are a little sloppy and kind of just like thrown in. Sometimes they're a little bit too dark, and so they start competing with the reflected light, which the halftone should always be lighter than the reflected light. As a guide, again, not a rule. You'll have situations where it's the opposite, like if you're drawing metallic surfaces, the reflected light might be just as bright as the highlight. Weird things can happen. So just as a guide, you want to make sure that everything on the light side is lighter than everything on the dark side. And I'm seeing your halftones are starting to get just a little bit too dark. Another thing that I noticed actually with the anatomy, and this was up here in the upper leg, and you could really see this when you compare it to mine, is that you were drawing everything really straight. You have a lot of repeating shapes here, where it's a straight right through there, pretty much a straight here, you got a straight here in the highlight and the halftone, another straight here. Everything is just a straight going across. If you look over on mine, you'll see I used a straight right through here in the IT band as it goes and attaches to the glutes here, because I'm trying to show tension in the IT band. It's a tendon and it's very tight. And so I wanted to put that straight. But then underneath that is the vastus lateralis. It's got that football shape right through here. And then in the hamstrings, showing a little bit of a curve. And then you got the glute. And so the muscular forms are rounded, whereas the tendons, another tendon right down here, is very straight. And that balance between the two looks a lot nicer. It's a nicer design than when everything is just straight across. And also just as far as accuracy, you have the IT band here kind of going right through here underneath the vastus lateralis. And really it goes right over the middle of it. Cuts right across and will create that indentation right there. And there's another piece that'll come off the tensor fascia lata, but doesn't always create a crease. So this whole thing right here is the IT band covering the vastus lateralis right here, whereas you have it kind of going underneath through there. Okay, so let's move on to the other drawings. You did a digital version here, which is much cleaner, definitely cleaner. I'm seeing the elements in here. You got those halftones, you got a nice clear highlight running along the calf. The only thing is, if you look at the photo, the shadow is a lot more clear. And so I would define that shadow a little bit better. If you're trying to go for more of a flat cartoony look, that's great. You achieved it. It's very clean. It looks nice. It doesn't look bad. But if you were trying to be accurate with what was in the photo, I would definitely make those shadows much stronger. And then on the right one, where it looks like you were just copying the photo, it's good, the halftones are too dark. You can see how these values right here they're starting to get really close to the values in here. Same thing on this side. See that value right on the edge here? It's very close to that value right here. Too close. You have two options. You could either lighten the halftones a little bit or darken the shadow. Either one would solve that problem, and that is your decision. You could just go more darker complexion on that, or you could lighten it up. Doesn't really matter. Both are correct. It's just that having a bigger difference between the two families is a little bit more accurate, more realistic. All right, Haruhiko, thank you very much for submitting that. Great studies. Just, you could clean up the shading a little bit. Another critique here that's related to shading This one's from Hyzalker Lucas. Beautiful, beautiful drawings. I really like the look. It's got that airbrush look, very well-designed shapes. I think these look really nice. I'm going to be really picky with what the critique I give you so that you can still, keep improving. My main critique for you is that it kind of looks like you took the photograph and you blurred it a little bit, like, maybe like 10% blur, got rid of all the little details, and then just gave it a dark outline. That's kind of the look, that's what it looks like. And to me, when I look at this, I just wish it had some sharp edges within the forms, within the outlines. You have that dark outline, which does help. It does help to make it feel like it's not just a blurry version of the photograph, because at least that's a sharp edge. But you don't want the outline to be the main thing that stands out. You want some of the inner forms, those details, to pop out. Yeah, you kind of want that outline to knock back a little bit, and then put maybe some highlights or maybe a sharp edge in one of the halftones, whatever it is. Just you look at the forms, or you think of the forms, and you think of where there would be a sharp edge. Your artistic decision here, or you could just copy the photograph. There's two artists that kind of remind me of your work, and I think you probably know of them because it feels like your work is very inspired by them. One is Max Grecke. I love his stuff. You can find him on Instagram. He's got a similar look where he's got areas where it's very soft, very airbrushy, like here, right? The cheeks in here, areas where there's just a very smooth gradation across the form. And then he's got areas with little details, with little sharp edges to balance it out. So for example, if we zoom in onto here, I wish I had a high resolution version of this, but I pulled this from Instagram. You can see how right in here, he's got a lot of little edges. He's got highlights, which pop the shoulder forward. Same thing in here, the little highlights, the little creases. They contrast those gradations really nicely, and they create this beautiful look. It's still kind of cartoony, like it's obviously not realistic. It's very stylized, but it's beautiful. And when I look at yours now, I just wish I saw some of that in yours. Like this area right here could have used some details. Very undescribed, you have a few dashes, basic information, but there's tendons going down there, there's the bone right here. There's a lot of little details that you could have popped forward. Same thing in the knee. You could have put a sharp edge right in here on the tibia, just not the whole thing, but just like a little bit of it. Maybe a sharper highlight right through there, just a little bit, and then fading off. Little areas where you could push just a little bit of something that make it look nicer. Definitely something in the toes need to pop, a little sparkle, maybe a really sharp edge along the front of the nail of the big toe, the creases in there. Also, just everything just a little blurry with a sharp outline. He doesn't actually have any outlines, but another artist that you kind of remind me of is Loish. I'm sure you guys have heard of Loish. She's got like 1 million something followers on Instagram. Beautiful stuff. Look at her, the way she handles it. So she's got same gradations like I was talking about with you. You can see all the really, really subtle turns of planes in the jaw and the cheeks, from the the bottom of the lip here to the chin. Very subtle tonal changes there. But in the areas where she's trying to guide your eye, the focal points, like the eye in here, she's got a lot of sharp edges, a lot of little details, and your eye is just drawn immediately to that. Same thing in the lip, lots of little sharp edges, highlights in the all around the nose where the planes suddenly change. And also, she has an outline. You see how all the way around her whole thing, she's got an outline. But notice how it's not just one black outline. She changes it as she goes. She changes the thickness. It's thicker right here in the nose. It gets thinner as it goes up and a little bit lighter. And then it's dark right here as it kind of connects the eyebrow to the eyelashes. And then it turns back into this pink one. And it kind of just blends in with the face a little bit. When you look at the whole picture, the outline isn't the thing that stands out. It's the little details within. Use Loish and Max as your inspiration because I think it's where you're trying to go, but they just got it a little bit more finessed. So that's my advice for you. All right, guys, so thank you for watching. I hope that helps you get your shading under control. If you want to watch the rest of my critiques for the CAF assignment, head over to proko.com/anatomy. I got like 15 more students that I go through. Give them all advice. So if you want to learn from their mistakes, get that premium anatomy course, and I will see you in the next lesson.